Hello, I'm Chris. I'm a fan of what Dundee Contemporary Arts does, and I'm here today at DCA with Mike, who's one of the cinema programmers for DCA, because I'm going to be back here really soon because you're about to show one of my favourite, well, not just my favourite films of all time, but one of my favourite things across all media and all genres of all time. It is, of course, a 1972 adaptation of Cabaret by Bob Fosse. Now, the clue's in the question a bit, Mike, but why is DCA showing Cabaret now?
Okay, well, as you know, DCA has a wide-ranging film programming selection, and into the vintage category, we have this film coming because it is actually the 50th anniversary of the film's release in 1972. Lots of interest in Cabaret, the concept at the moment, of course, because of the theatrical production in London with Eddie Redmayne and Jessie Buckley that's been wowing crowds. And
Which you've seen.
Which I have seen indeed. And so the BFI have just revved up the vehicle and brought it out again for 50th spin around. It's been released on several occasions over the 50-year period, and it's one more time perfectly timed for this new level of interest.
It's going to be so joyous to see it on the big screen again, because I've only ever seen on my telly at home, which is great, but being able to see it in a communal experience on the big screen is going to be phenomenal. So what does the film mean to you? Why is it important to you? Why did we bring it here?
I mean, the film has survived for 50 years. I mean, it's interesting to think, will we still be talking about Eddie Redmayne's performance in 50 years' time in the way that we're still all talking about Liza Minnelli? Who knows?
Her first Oscar.
Her first Oscar, her best Oscar, probably. And lots of discussion about, well, she takes it to a place that perhaps the theatrical production doesn't take.
So the story of Cabaret then is the story of a young man coming to Berlin, pre-war Berlin, and shacking up in effect with a character called Sally Bowles. And the thing you're referring to, of course, is that canonically Sally Bowles, who's a singer in the Kit Kat Club, the cabaret of the title, is an appalling singer. And yet Liza Minnelli, of course, is not an appalling singer.
That's absolutely it. And in certain theatrical productions over the years, we have had actresses who have been brave enough, not necessarily to hit all the notes. But the character, the story, the characters within the Kit Kat Club and also within the boarding house that Cliff stays in, those stories are in the stage play, they're also in the film, but they're kind of given different emphases and different priorities and liberties, some would have us believe, are taken by Bob Fosse, the film director, which kind of removes us to outside the club and really gives it a focus on more of the political, more of the German. So in a way, Cabaret, the film, potentially is darker because you see so much more. And I think it's one of those things that for the current situation and the current time, as times they are changing still, it's really interesting to be able to look at that film version and say, yes, he did it slightly differently, but the things he added or the things he removed, it's quite clear why he did that, what he was putting the focus on.
Because it's still a film with, and indeed the book, the issue of the book it's based on, is still a narrative that has so much to tell us about populism, about the rise of Nazism in the case of the film in particular, about marginalisation, about queerness. There's so much in this film that people can react to that is utterly relevant today.
And I think that's quite interesting. In a lot of stories, maybe they're historically set or they're in different costumes or different time periods, but it's in order for that to filter through to the present day, how well is the story told so that you can recognize in yourself. And as you say, Cabaret is perfect for that. Everybody instantly recognizes the World War period or the pre-war period in Germany, but it's the relevance and, as you say, the outsiders and the kind of the rise of a popular front and such like. Yeah, it's very much of the essence of today.
Yeah, it's a story that we still need to be telling, I think, and still need to be listening to, which is why it's fantastic that DC is bringing it back. The joy of the film as well for me is in its technicality, which I know sounds like quite a dry thing to say, but I know some of my friends have expressed sort of like sneering attitudes towards musicals. They sort of worry about characters bursting into song mid-sentence. In Cabaret, of course, that's not what happens. The songs that happen, which are phenomenal songs, they happen on the stage in the Kit Kat Club almost exclusively, and they are there so cleverly to prefigure story points, to underline story points. And even if I reckon you don't particularly enjoy a Sondheim musical or a Lloyd Webber musical, you can't fail but be drawn to the craft of how Fosse has put this thing together.
It's an interesting point in the sense of there are musical interludes, or they appear as interludes, i.e. in the club. But would Cabaret be the same film if you took all of those musical interludes out and only had the background story And likewise, if you took out all of the character development and the stories, the relationship with Max, for example, and only had the club scenes, would it be the same film? And the simple answer is not at all. Each bleeds into the other. And it's critical that you can enjoy both at the same time, because adding those two elements together, you get a much bigger whole at the end.
Yes. So it's showing on Sunday and on Tuesday here at DCA. What is your final message? Why should people come to the Cabaret?
I'm really tempted to say, because Cabaret is not all about Eddie Redmayne. And the opportunity to see a Fosse film, or any film, let's be honest, up on the big screen with proper cinema sound, proper cinema lighting, is not to be sniffed at. And I would say that Cabaret works really, really well in the cinema setting, because so much of it is about darkness and light, and the difference between
the demi-monde of the Cabaret Club itself.
All of this talk about, even the orchestra is beautiful. What is beauty? What does beauty look like? And Fosse is a master when it comes to the tedium and tat of purchased pleasure, as was once said about his work. But it's that when you get a dark scene in a cinema setting, it's so much more darker. When you go to the bright light, feeling that in a cinema, big screen, big sound, it's absolutely the way to do it.
I cannot wait. So folks, come to the Cabaret.